Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Lehman from Math with Mrs. Lehman. I'm here again with my 6th period class.
Hello!
I've been doing a lot of recordings with my 6th period class, mainly because I'm forgetful earlier in the day, and I'm like, oh rats, I need to upload a video, and by 6th period I remember. Alright, so anyway, we have a bell ringer today. It says there were 24 students in the class, 25% of them ate breakfast in the cafeteria. How many students ate breakfast in the cafeteria? And I gave you a little hint here, part over whole equals percent out of 100. So we know that percents are out of 100, so that's like a freebie. And then 25% of them ate breakfast in the cafeteria, so that's 25 out of 100. But we weren't dealing with 100 kids, we were dealing with 24 students. So that is either the partial or the whole amount. We have to make that decision and put it in the appropriate place. So is that the partial amount of students that ate breakfast, or is that the total amount of kids in the class?
Total.
That is total, all right? That is the total amount of students in the class. Okay, we want to figure out, it says right here, how many students ate breakfast in the cafeteria. That's the partial amount that is unknown. So a lot of people, whoops, why did I write 25? I write 24, not 25. A lot of kids earlier today got to this point and they're like, I don't know what to do, Mrs. Lehman, that doesn't work. What do we need to do next? Abby.
If you can't divide, you must, or multiply, then you must simplify.
Yeah, we've got to simplify that ratio, right? So 25 over 100, that is divisible by what? What is the greatest common factor, those two numbers, Ryan?
5.
We can go bigger than 5. Tucker. 6 doesn't go into 25 or 100. Liliana?
25.
25, very good. So, divide it by 25, you're going to get 1 over, you gave the answer, didn't you, Tucker? All right, so 100 divided by 25 is 4. So we know that simplifies to 1/4. So now we're looking for the connection. To get from 4 to 24, we multiply by 6 times 6, right? 1 times 6 is 6. So as Tucker said, 6 students. So 6 students ate in the cafeteria. They ate breakfast at home, apparently. All right. Question, Olivia.
I have a question. I just did it that a different way.
Okay, how'd you do it?
I did 25 divided out of
Okay.
like that. And then I got that answer.
Very good. So what Olivia has on her paper looks a little different, but she's looking at this. She knows if you take 100 and divide it by 4, you get 25. So she took 24 and divided it by 4 to get 6. And that is also valid. Okay? All right, 5 folders cost $2.50. What is the unit price? So we know 5 folders, $2.50. Unit price. When we're looking for unit price, when we do this division, what do we put on top? Folders or money when we're finding unit price? Rihanna? Money, very good. So $2.50 for every 5 folders. And this line means we do what? Division, yep. So what do you get when you divide 250 by 5? $2.50 by 5. Lonnie?
Oh, we divide by 1?
No, $2.50 divided by 5. So how many times is 5 going to 25?
How many times is 25 going to 5?
No, how many times is 5 going to 25?
5.
5 times, right? So we would have a decimal point in there, right? So what would the answer be?
25. What?
Here, I'm going to set it up for you guys. Some of you are struggling. So $2.50 divided by 5. You bring the decimal point right up above. It does not go into 2. It goes into 25 5 times, Lonnie said. So you subtract, you get 0. So your answer is 50 cents. So $0.50 per folder. Yep. Any questions on that? Who got 50 cents per folder? Where were you 5 minutes ago, kids? All right, I'm going to pause this for a quick second. Okay, we are back. We're going to move on to fraction as a percent. We've talked about some of this. Each class was in a slightly different place. We talked about people happy and unhappy with their jobs, and 70% were happy, 30% were unhappy. That adds up to 100% of the people surveyed. On the next page, we talked about Renita claiming that 80% is the same as saying 4 out of every 5 problems, and we agreed with her based on the fact that if we scale 4/5 up, we would get to 80 out of 100. Oh, we didn't do that, did we?
No.
We are super behind. Okay, here we go. Renita claims that a score of 80% means that she answered 4 out of 5 problems correctly. She drew the following picture to support her claim. Whoops. Undo that, Mrs. Lehman. All right, so we're on page 78 right now. We did do that?
Yeah. Only the first on the other page.
Okay, well, each class is, okay, some people's notebooks look a little incomplete, maybe due to absenteeism. Okay, so we're good with that page. We did indeed do that. Let's go to 79. Are we all caught up there? Oh, good. Phew, I thought we were super behind there. All right, let's go to page 80. We did not do all of it. You had a lesson, Michael. You need to catch up from when you're absent for a lesson. All right, so the page before this one, right? The bottom part? Okay. Phew, I was really nervous that we were like a full day behind. Okay, so what we're going to do in this chart is convert between decimals and percents, okay, and fractions. So we have 1/8, and we want to convert that to a decimal. Does anyone know how to convert a fraction to a decimal? You think you know?
I know.
Anaya, you know? What do you think?
I don't want to say it though.
You don't want to say it? You want to whisper it to me and I'll say it? No, nope. Common misconception there. No. Yes, okay, so what I'm hearing are common misconceptions, so you shouldn't be embarrassed that you had those. It's really, something you need to learn. A lot of kids think because when we were dealing with tenths, we learned to write, point whatever, out of hundreds. When we're dealing with powers of 10, it's essentially a decimal point and then the number, right? So kids overgeneralize that and they see 1/8 and they think 0.8 or 1.8 or 0.18 or something where you just slap down a decimal point and you put down those numbers and there's really no thought involved. That is not true, okay? What you need to do is take the top number, your numerator, and divide it by your denominator. So in this case, we're going to take 1 and divide it by 8. So everybody on your calculator right now, you're going to take 1 and divide it by 8. All right, and you're going to get 0.125. What? Because you have 0.1. You got to make sure you're typing onto a clean screen there, okay? So 0.125. Now, to change that to a percent, we need to think that percents are out of 100, right? So essentially what we're doing is we're multiplying decimals times 100 to get the percent, all right? So if we multiply something by 100, we're moving the decimal spot how many times? Paula? 2, very good. Now, the way that you can maybe remember this is if you're going to a percent with an R, you're going to move it 2 spots to the right. So that will become 12.5%. All right? If we were given 12.5%, we wanted to change it to a decimal, the L would signal us, as a mnemonic device to go 2 spots to the left. Okay? So that's how you would do that. You need to divide the fractions, get a decimal, and then you can change any decimal to a percent. This time they gave us a decimal of 35 hundredths, right? We can write a fraction as 35 hundredths like this, okay? And I think that's where that confusion earlier comes from. Now that's not simplest form. We have 2 numbers there that are both divisible by 5. Yep, so we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 5. We're going to get 7 over 20, which is simplest form. Now, just to make sure I'm not full of baloney, at least totally full of baloney, let's take 7 and divide it by 20 to see if that gives us 3,500s.
Yep.
It does, all right? So let that be a lesson here that unless it's out of a power of 10, like in this case 35 over 100, if it's out of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, etc., then you can easily convert it to a decimal that way. But a lot of times the fractions we deal with are not out of a power of 10, right? They're out of 8, or in this case out of 20 maybe. So that's where that division is going to help you out, okay? All right, so over here as a percent, who can tell me what that would be as a percent? Xavier.
3.5%.
What did you say?
3.5%.
How many spots are you supposed to move that decimal point, Xavier? Brianna, help him out.
35%.
It's 35% because you got to move it 2 times, okay? You're always moving it 2 times when you're dealing with percents and decimals, right? So that would be 35%, because here would be 1 move, here would be 2 moves, okay? Any questions on that? All right. Okay, that's why we're practicing. So we have the percent of 84.5%. We're going to change that to a decimal. We're going to move it 2 spots to the right or left.
Right. I mean left.
Final answer.
Left.
Left. Okay, so we're going to take that decimal spot, move it 2 to the left. So we're going to end up with 0.845. All right. Any questions on how I'm coming up with that? So how many spots do we always move the decimal place?
2.
2. And if we're going from a percent to a decimal, we move it to the left. If we're going from a decimal to a percent, we move it to the right. Okay, correct. Now we're going to write that as a fraction. Does anyone have an idea what I would write as a fraction there? We don't necessarily have to have it in those terms yet. Who can read this decimal for me correctly? Michael.
845
Nope.
845,000.
Very good. All right, so how you read decimals is you read the number as if they weren't a decimal, 845, and then you read the last place that it's in. So in this case, this 5 is in the thousandths place, so you'd say 845 thousandths. All right, so that will give you pretty much your fraction, 845 thousandths. All right, now we're going to simplify that. So just looking at this, I'm not sure what the GCF, greatest common factor, is. So I'm going to start with one that I know it will be divisible by, which is 5. So let's take 845 divided by 5, and you're going to get 169 over 200. How did I get that? Well, I factored out 5. Okay? Unless I'm missing something, I think that's lowest terms. All right. Any questions on that? All right, let's look at the next one. We have 325. How would we read that? 325 thousandths. Very good. So we're going to move the decimal spot how many places
2.
to make it 2? Very good. So what would that be?
That would be 32.5.
Very good, 32.5%, 32.5%. And a lot of kids are like a little nervous that like, oh no, we have a partial percent. Yep, we're going to deal with those a lot in 6th grade, okay? A lot of kids earlier tried to round everything up. Unless you're asked to, we can deal with 1/10%. We'll be okay, all right? Now, 325, we're going to do that one just like this one above, 325 thousandths, so out of 1,000. But we need to simplify that. So I'm going to start by dividing by 5 because I have numbers that end in a 5 and a 0. So 325 divided by 5 gives you what? Yep, 65. The kids are doing this on their calculators at the same time. So 1,000 divided by 5 is 200, that's divisible by 5 again. So 65 divided by 5 equals 13. And 200 divided by 5 is 40. All right? So 13/40ths. Now, just to be sure, let's take our calculators and divide 13 by 40. So 13 divided by 40. If we've done this correctly, what would my answer be? Yes. Very good, yeah. So let's see if we're right. Yes, we are. All right. Let's look at this last one. 2/25. I'm going to pause the video and let the kids do this one on their own. Okay, so we have 2 out of 25. So if you take 2 and divide it by 25, you're going to get 0.08, okay? So move that decimal spot 2 spots over. That's going to give you 8%. All right, another way you could look at this, which a lot of you didn't do, is if you wanted to look at it out of 100, sometimes you have these magical denominators that'll easily scale up to a power of 10. Right? This one will scale up easily to 100 by multiplying it by 4. So if you do the same thing to the top, you're going to get 8 out of 100, which we know is 8% or 8/100. Okay? But that doesn't work all the time, just when you have one of those very special, bless you, denominators. All right, we're going to move on to the next page. We're going to use this 10 by 10 grid to express the fraction 11/20 as a percent. Right? So 11 out of 20, we want to figure out what that percent is out of 100. Again, that 100 is kind of free because we know percents are out of 100. So we're looking for the connection here. To get from 20 to 100, what are we doing?
Times it by 5.
Very good, Ryan. So times 5. 11 times 5 is what? 55 out of 100 equals what percent? Very good, 55%. So you need to color in very quickly 55% of these boxes. There's 100 here, so we need 55 boxes covered. So this is really beautiful looking, I know. It's a great skill of scribbling I have. Okay, that looks really good. Not really, but we'll call it good enough for today. Moving on, because we don't have all day. We're going to use a tape diagram to relate the fraction 11/20 to a percent. So we need to think about if we were to take 100% and break it up into 20 sections, because this is saying 11 out of 20, what would each box be worth if we took 100, divided it into 20 sections? What's 100 divided by 20? 5. Good, Crew. So 100 divided by 20 is going to be 5% in each box. So we're going to draw a nice long tape diagram. We're going to draw 19 vertical lines to divide this into 20 sections. Hold on, I got to double count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I need one more, 20. All right, so now we've already discovered that each box, because there's 20 of them, they're worth 5% each. So I think you guys get the point if you do it in just a handful of these boxes, that each one is worth 5%, right? Yes. How do we get the 5%? Great question, Maddie. So we looked at this fraction, 11/20. So we knew we had to draw 20 boxes. The other day we did a problem where the lady worked 3/4 of her workday. We divided 100% into 4 boxes because it was out of 4ths. This is out of 20ths, so we're dividing it 100 by 20. Okay, so we're using this number right here in conjunction with 100. So we've got 20 boxes, okay? We know all of this needs to equal 100%. So if you take 100 divided by 20, you get 5% in each box. Now we want 11 of those boxes. So let's count out 11 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 right there. They're each worth 5% each. So 11 times 5, if you count by 5 11 times, what are you going to get? 55%. All right, so that is the answer there. We are not going to really talk too much about question 101, and we are going to look at question 102. What decimal is also related to the fraction? So 11/20ths, if we were to divide that, or if we were to look at that as a percent and then a decimal, what would the decimal be here? Liliana. Very good, 5,500. So write that next to 102. Your homework tonight is to do exactly these skills. You're going to be converting some percents to decimals and to fractions. You're going to use a tape diagram to represent a partial amount and then indicate what the percents are for those. I'd like to thank you for watching Math with Mrs. Lehman. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great night.